Gayatri Mahamantra with your back straight, both hands on your lap, left beneath the right one, contemplative mode. Om Bhure Bhuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. Om. A great exalted master by the name, whose named when he was born was given as Arth Tran Mishra. It's seldom that we come across certain names which we have never heard before in our lives. And this happens to be one of them. Although he became famous as Udia Baba later on, but the name given to him during his birth was Arth Tran Mishra. Arth means the one who is aggrieved, in pain, in dismay. Tran means one who can relinquish the pain, who can relieve one from the agony. So Arth Tran, one who can relieve the agony of someone, is Arth Tran. Mishra happens to be his caste. Born in 1875, this great exalted being, he manifested in a family where religiosity was all over, to such an extent that people from 50 to 60 villages used to come and seek blessing, guidance, spiritual clarification from the family. And this was being furthered one generation after another. This family, as being informed, was a Vaishnav Sampradaya, worshippers of Lord Vishnu. But later on, since past 8 generation, one of their ancestor became a Kali Bhakta, goddess Kali. And then she gave him her darshan, a vision of Kali. Thereafter, the entire family started worshipping Ma Kali, and she was their family deity as well. Now, Artha Tran Mishra, right from the childhood, was a dissatisfied, discontented kind of a person. Not from the worldly seeking, not from the worldly seeking, but somewhere in his inner self, there was a quest which he was not able to quench. He was almost restless. Now, at a very tender age, when he's almost resolved that I don't have any solutions to my fire that is almost insatiable within me, he left his home and he left for a place nearby where he joined a school for his learning. The gentleman who was the teacher there was a known one to his father. So he started studying there. Then, on the scare being found by the family, he then moved on to another village where he joined another school. There, something very strange happened. There was a play which was organized in the school by a team from Kolkata. They were performing a very divine play about gods. There was a scene in the play that cast such an impression upon the child that he went into a trance for about 3 continuous days. Everybody around was quite worried whether something wrong has happened to him, what has gone wrong with him. But after 3 days, he recovered. Even he could not realize where he was for all those 3 days. And that strange phenomena was observed and was well informed by others. He was still in his state where he was totally dissatisfied, discontented, restless, not being able to find or get what exactly is he seeking. He was not even sure that what he is exactly seeking within himself. But all through he was in contact with his family. They knew where he is, what he is doing. Then a famine came into that territory, in that area, where there was extreme deprivation for food. People were dying in the dearth of food. He was totally anguished by the pain of the people. He thought, as a young lad, he thought that the mantra have lot of power. I must propitiate some deity, get some powers, astral powers, so that I can feed everyone. So thereby, he left his home with one dhoti, then dhoti in sort of a wrap. Then another thing which he carried was one utensil, which he thought that after I gather my siddhi, I achieve my siddhi, this particular utensil shall serve me to provide endless grain to feed people, and 11 rupees in his pocket. He left his home and he left for Assam, Kamaksha Devi Mandir. There he met certain tantrics, he met certain sadhus who gave him some mantra, and he started performing his tapascharya, his austerity. In his spiritual practices, he was able to further to a great extent. But then all of a sudden, a thought came to his mind, even if I accomplish and I get the siddhi I seek for, how many people can I feed through this one utensil? There is a limit for them. Ultimately, how many people can be served through this utensil? I can't feed everybody for that matter. So I should not waste any further moment over here. Let me move onward. And from there, he moved to other places, to Kashi, Varanasi. There he performed austerity, strict austerity for about 3 days without even getting up to relieve himself from the nature's call. But that was all rather as an attempt to simply toil around, nothing more than that. Then a thought came to him that I must go to Baidyanath Dham. I must perform some austerity there. Maybe I get some clarity from there, or I am able to meet some celestial being or some exalted Rishi who can guide me further. This wandering goes on within him for a long period of time. And this wandering does not get him what exactly he is seeking. He's seeking an intervention of someone who probably is from an exalted state, and he's not able to meet anyone of that kind. So he goes on wandering from one place to another, sitting at one place, adopting one practice, not satisfied, changing over the practice, and moving around. So that wandering continues. Ultimately, he arrives at at the feet of Shankaracharya of Govardhan Peeth. There he is initiated into Brahmacharya by the name Vasudeva Swarup. And thereafter, he resolves that now I am going to sit in order to propitiate one mantra and accomplish a siddhi upon that. Then he makes himself beseated and undergoes a strict, stringent sadhana of Shatachandi Anushthan. Thereafter, he accumulates lot of power. That spiritual power comes in abundance to him to such an extent that his words become immutable. Whatever he makes as a pronouncement happens to that person. So much so that huge the large number of people, huge queues, large number of crowds started thronging to him. There was a beeline, never-ending beeline before him. Whatever he would say to anyone shall manifest, shall come true. So that kind of a power he was able to exercise with the people. He was not interested in anything other than that. Although during those times in 19th century, as it is reported, at least a collection, a donation of 5 to 700 rupees per day was coming. But he was totally disinterested. Even this accomplishment could not satisfy him. That insatiable fire within him still rendered him more of pain. He was not satisfied. Discontented, he left towards Bengal. And there he got an initiation into sannyasa by the name Swami Purnananda Tirth. And during those times, the sannyasis, the ascetics were not addressed by their name. So thereby, he was given a name by his followers as Udia Baba. And that is the name he became very famous with. His wandering did not cease. He kept on wandering from one place to another, from there to another, all through the banks of the river Ganges, right? The most favorable territory to him, the most preferred territory to him, was between Rishikesh and Anup Shahar. And most of the times he used to prefer to remain into the forest. He never wanted to be identified. He never wanted to be noticed, especially refrained a lot from the sight of the women. But people somehow could gather information about him and they would throng towards him and seek blessings. He would continue to do so. But his inner discontentment prevailed all through. Had to wander a lot. One day he was at the banks of the Ganges by the side of the shivling, somewhere lost within himself, totally discontented with his life. And all of a sudden, he gets a vision, not hallucination, but a vision with wide eyes open of Bholenath, Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva manifests before him and he utters a shloka to him. The essence of the shloka was that someone, the entity of the Brahma, is not something which is prone to any change, it is immutable. That is why it is addressed by certain learned ones as Neti Neti, not this, not this, but it's beseated within your heart. That's how he gave him a shlok. But more important than the shlok was that one touch of Bholenath removed the veil of ignorance from him and the entire restlessness within him, it simply evaporated. It vanished. And he felt as if this is what he was seeking. This is why he was wandering all through. Now he's totally complete. He has now accomplished now. Thereafter, Bholinath left, but his wandering now became his well planned moves. He kept moving between again Rishikesh and Anupshahar by the banks of the Ganges, giving lessons to people, asking them to worship through the mantra japa, gave them certain knowledge about spiritual practices. Not that he would share much about Vedant, but the spiritual practices as mantra japa was his most favorite that he used to share and impress upon people to worship that and adopt that. Then one day he was again blessed to have a vision of ancient master, one of the exalted ancient master, Shukdevji Maharaj. Then he was blessed by a darshan of ancient sage Vamdevji Maharaj and many other ancient Brahm Rishis, they manifested before him. This account is available in one of the book which one of his followers had authored way back around 60, 70 years ago, which I happened to come across on the net and I went through that book. There was a lot which was mentioned about him there in the book that which cannot be sufficed in a small introduction like this. But yes, in the final years of his life, he resolved to now come and settle at Vrindavan. His followers arranged for us an ashram for him, an abode for him to stay at one place now. Throughout his life, he was wandering, wandering, and moving barefoot. One of the incidents had triggered in him to resolve that throughout my life I shall move by barefoot. Although once it is said that he had to board a vehicle for a very noble pursuit, and otherwise his entire life was by the service to his indomitable spirit, which had resolved that now I will not use a vehicle ever in my life. And one day, what happened, a very strange incident, which is totally inconsonant to the lives of the Brahm Rishis, a Rishi like him, an exalted master like him. It should not happen. But that's the play how the unseen dimension connives to stage certain play in such a manner the enactment at time is not acceptable. And something similar happened. He was in his ashram. He was There was followers around him. He was not feeling well since few days, and Ma Anandamai and other great exalted masters of the times wanted him to get well. They also sought to get his health balanced from with their own divine intervention. But then they were able to understand that he himself does not want to come out of that. So the Mahanandamai especially told him, Baba, we have done our part, but we understand that you yourself can heal yourself and you don't want to come out of that. Anyway, one day when he was sitting with his followers, there was one follower at the back who was hurling a chamar, kind of a it's something which people an adorable kind of a fan. When you adore someone, the chamar they move. It also removes if any fly comes and also gives a slight mild air. Can be considered as a fan, a hand fan. Can be considered as to remove flies, etc. And a person with not with the balanced state of mind appeared from nowhere, and he wanted to do that, move that hand fan, chamar. The gentleman who was responsible to do handle that denied. They said, "No, I can't give you the excess of this. This is my job." That person disappeared from there and came back with the axe. And then he axed this exalted master thrice on his head. And this fatal blow led to the death of this exalted master, which was an enactment of the divine play, which is unacceptable. But anyway, this is how it happened. Maybe there was some burden, some karmic dispensation of this exalted being for that person. No one knows about that, but this is how it has been reported. Having said about this, the kind of life which he lived with the austerity, extreme austerity, without any spot at all upon him, uncompromising was all through his conduct. Whatever he resolved, he lived that till his last breath. And he benefited the lives of thousands and thousands and thousands of people. I am not able to share the message of Udia Baba for the reason because the time would not suffice in a small introduction of this kind. Maybe sometime we get an opportunity to share his message also. Today, I pay my highest obedience to this exalted being, Udia Babaji Maharaj. Om hi satya hai. Om hi satya hai. Om hi satya hai.